Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Accepting. I'm my co-host Jake, and we have a special guest today. Jake, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good. Who's our special guest today?
She's our unpaid staff editor, marketer. Other words known as my wife. So, Lizzy, say hi to everybody. Lizzy's first time on the podcast. This is episode 14.
Hi, everybody.
15. I can't even remember.
I think it's 16.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
See,
go,
that's
David.
why. Yeah, that's why she is. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We've done
15
16 of
hasn't
these?
been uploaded yet.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe not tell the people that by the time you hear this, 15
It
will be
will be up.
uploaded. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
then when 17 is recording, you'll hear this.
Yes.
We're one behind.
Probably.
That's okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
slacker.
Yes.
We got,
Well,
editing
she's unpaid.
issues.
It's all good.
She's unpaid. That's right. Priority.
Yep. So, Jake, what did you want to do today? This was all your idea. Why don't you take the reins?
This was my idea. Yes, I wanted to, because I've heard recently more and more about people who are either around the age of like early 20s or they're kind of nearing the end of their 20s, and they've talked about either getting married when everything's perfect, meaning their whole life is in this utopia phase and everything is perfect financially, and they have their quote ducks in a row. Or people have said, well, you got to live with the person for years and years and years before you get married, and by that point then you're older. And I don't think that many people get married younger, and I think it's important because when you get married younger, you have obviously a longer period where you can have a family, and it's more of a chance for it to expand. And I think, we've talked a lot about how the traditional family is being attacked. And I think part of the reason for that is so many people are, I don't know, I should say taught or just influenced to wait till either one, everything's perfect or near perfect in your life, or you need to get married just at a later day because getting married to somebody early on is just, something they did in the 50s and it doesn't apply now, and it's silly and irresponsible and all this other stuff. So I thought, let's get a couple who have married young and who have recently married where you still semi, like each other more than half the days of the week. And let's talk about, why you both wanted to get married younger. Was it planned? Were you trying to do that? Did it just kind of happen? And I think a lot of people will take from this that it isn't just this old facade, this traditional way of thinking that you can, if you meet the right person and if it works out, then why should you wait?
Yeah, Lizzy, do you want me to explain a little bit of why we got married when we did, or do you want to go?
I'll let you start.
Okay. So originally when Lizzy and I first started dating, Lizzy said she wanted to date for 2 years. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed like a long time. And so I said, okay, we'll just plan on 2 years. And then we got it down to 1.5 years because she was graduating and everything was going good. I just got a new job and things were going well. And then we got it down to, okay, probably 1 year. We started dating in June of 2020. Really, it was probably like April, but we didn't see each other because everyone was scared to death to see each other. So we were texting pretty frequently starting about April of 2020. And then we said probably summer of 2021, right? And then Lizzy gets a full-time job offer from the place that she was interning. And something just hit me that said, you know what? She's got a job lined up. I got a job lined up. Everything's going good. I'm convinced she's the one. And I did it in 9 months. And I shocked just about every single soul that had any relation to me or Lizzy. I remember I left my parents' house. It was a Sunday night. And after Mass on Sundays, Lizzy and I would have dinner with my parents and my family. And I would drive Lizzy home because I just would drive her around on Sundays. And I remember I sent this long paragraph message that I had saved for whenever I was going to propose to Lizzy. And I was just sent it to my mom and dad. And all it basically said was, listen, I know this is sooner than you've expected, but Lizzie's the one I want to be with forever. I'm asking her to marry me tonight. Thank you for all your teaching. Very basic stuff like that, but important stuff. And
Mhm.
I proposed to her at 9 months, and then we got married 8 months later. So all in all, our quote unquote traditional courtship was 17 months. So
Now, Lizzy, why was 2 years the time frame that you wanted to wait?
For exactly the reason that you opened this with, Jake. I wanted our ducks in a row. I wanted to make sure we were going to be okay. But I'll say about 4 months in, and definitely by 6 months, I knew I wanted to marry David. And it just kind of seemed, why wait when we know? And then, like David said, our ducks started getting in a row. And I'll add to what David said here. The one person who was not surprised by him proposing at 9 months was my dad, who proposed to my mom at just 3 months. So there was one person who
okay.
saw it coming.
he didn't mess around.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to, like, I don't know what side of the family it's on, but I have a great great aunt or something. And she, I think, lived to be 80s, and she got married. I don't know what her life story was before, but she met somebody when she was 65, and they got married, and they married for 25 years. So, I mean, it doesn't, the timing is not universal. It can change with no matter who it is. But I think, I mean, so Lizzy, you said 6 months. David, when was it for you that you were like, either you thought, well, this is it, or I'm pretty sure that she's the person?
I would say about 6 months, because that was when Lizzie was still in college. So she had winter break. And for college, winter break is like the whole month of December. And we were just spending way more time. Like, we already spent quite a bit of time, but at that point we were spending a lot of time together. And I just felt like I couldn't see myself down the road without her by my side anymore. So that's why I figured, okay, this is the one, because I didn't expect to feel that so quickly. And I told myself, it's all emotional, think rationally. But then I thought, well, this would work. We've talked about a lot of this stuff very early on. We've ironed all of it out. And obviously, this isn't just raw emotion talking. This is more than that. This is companionship. This is stuff like that. So about 6, 7 months, pretty much winter break for Lizzie, when she was off school, and we could spend more time together.
Now, this is like during COVID. This is 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
did you find it hard to maybe, like, I'll put it this way. Do you think if COVID wasn't happening, if it was a normal year, and everything was still open and there wasn't so much lockdown, even though you might have still been seeing each other a lot, do you think that it still would have been around the same time frame had you been able to see each other more without COVID? Or do you just think that it really wouldn't have mattered? COVID didn't make that much of a difference, because a lot of people would probably argue that COVID is probably the worst year to meet somebody, even though you guys already knew each other, and B, date and have those talks like you're talking about, and get to the point where you were pretty sure.
Actually, I think COVID had the opposite effect on us, because then we both worked from home, and we could both. There'd be some days where if we had a lot on our mind, or we had a lot to talk about, and we weren't very busy at work, we would just be on the phone during work, or during our lunch. You couldn't really do that if I was working in downtown Chicago, because I probably don't quit my first job if I'm working in downtown, because it was a lot easier to manage working in the office, just the workload and everything. So I actually think COVID made it easier for us, because she would have had a 25 plus minute commute to where she works. And where I work even now would have been 35, 40 minutes. Granted, they'd let me work from home. So I think the way COVID helped us. That's just my theory.
I think you're right. At first, I thought, oh, it doesn't make a difference. But you pointed out that you did have a job in downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
And I was working like crazy my last semester of college. So, or actually the semester when COVID hit and everything got shut down, March 2020, I was working like crazy. I had no downtime. So we definitely wouldn't have been able to spend as much time together if you were going downtown every day, and I had my school and I had 3 jobs and I was doing an internship. So yeah, COVID definitely helped us slow down and spend time together.
Right. And I mean, so now, Lizzy, so David, you guys start dating, and he gets to about that 6-month period. Even before that, when was it when you thought like that David was the kind of the person that you may want to be with? Because if I'm not mistaken, you both knew each other from school, but now you got in contact with David first?
I did.
Are we going to tell Lizzy? Can we tell this story?
Or? I guess so. So the first time around, okay, first let me preface by saying I was a pretty picky dater, and I didn't want to date somebody unless I saw marriage being an option 2 years
That's a good
down the
thing,
road.
ladies.
Yeah,
listening.
no,
That's a good
it was
thing.
good. It kept me out of trouble. So I didn't pursue David that first time. I pursued him twice. So that first time I didn't pursue
first
David.
time. Oh.
Yeah. Until I was sure, okay, he's a great guy. He's a good man. He loves God. I'm going to give it a shot. So I was trying to make it pretty clear to him that he should ask me out, but he wasn't getting the hint. So I went ahead and I took the plunge.
World shut down. I am a victim of circumstance. We're literally talking about 5 million people dying on the news, and I didn't know what to believe.
Yeah. I could see that, Lizzy. Go ahead. Yeah, I know.
He'd be oblivious.
Yeah, he was probably like, oh yeah, this is weird. She must not be busy. I don't know why she's talking to me. Yeah. But so you knew. So you went into it knowing that there was a chance, right? Like there was an opportunity there.
Right, because I didn't want to get into a relationship and get emotionally attached and my life interwoven with somebody who wasn't interested in that.
David, what did you think when all of a sudden COVID shuts down and you did finally get the hint?
Well, excuse me. When after the first time around, I didn't really have hard feelings or anything like that. And then ironically, Lizzy had reached out to me 3 days before Illinois issued their lockdown, asking if I wanted to stop by the school and meet up again. So we had originally made a plan to meet in person before the whole world stopped turning, figuratively. And I thought she was just trying to catch up. I knew a lot of people from college because that was the year after I graduated. I knew a lot of people that were just texting me, asking me how everything's going. Do you want to hang out for a bit to catch up? So that's what I kind of thought it was. But then, like, unfortunately, I was so oblivious. Maybe it's because I was so messed up in the head from all the news and everything like that. But Lizzy had to straight up just say, are you trying to gently reject me from going out with me? I was like, I felt really dumb at that text message.
Hey, good for her, because you gotta let it be known.
We should probably elaborate though. So that first time around, when I first kind of gave you a nudge to ask me out, I got scared and I dumped you. So that second time around is then right before COVID, just to give everybody that backstory.
But you had to do the same thing twice. The first time around,
yes, I did. But the second time is much more reasonable, given I ran away scared.
I know
why you didn't think of it.
People say I'm a smart guy. Maybe after listening to this, they might not think this.
David, did anybody that you were close to, friends maybe, give you any advice before you started to meet Lizzy the second time?
Yeah, so I was talking to a few of my friends on Xbox Live. We were playing a ton of video games because we had nothing else to do with our lives because nothing was open. And one of my good friends, people might know him because he helps do the podcast with me, just FYI. Jake was vehemently against me getting together with Lizzy a second time. He stopped everything. Like, he paused the game, didn't even get into a game any further. He's like, you better listen to me. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, what was that for? Like, I'm still going to go out with her, whether he says any of that or not.
Lizzy leads the call. She just leads the call.
Yeah.
But so you guys meet and everything's good. Now, and the important thing is, and this is where a lot of people obviously don't follow this path, is you both, because Lizzy said it, David really didn't say anything about it yet. you both, I'm sure, were very focused on God being a part of your relationship, and from the very beginning. I mean, Lizzy said, she wasn't going to even get involved with somebody that she didn't think could eventually turn out to be her spouse, and that David was somebody who feared God and was very much involved with church and that sort of thing. So how did your whole relationship, even more so now that you're married, center around God and the importance of the sacraments, the rosary, all of that?
Would you like to go ahead first, Lizzy, or do you want me to say?
No, you can lead.
Okay.
You've got this.
Well, leading into the relationship, I knew I needed to find a woman who would put God first, because the world was falling away pretty rapidly right before our eyes. And so I had the same intention of, if I was going to date someone, it was to find out if I could marry them and live a holy life and get to heaven with them. That's, the goal. And I would say the longer we've been together, the more God has centered in our lives. We we pray every night. We go to mass every Sunday that we can. That's here in Chicago. Um, we try to help people come back to God. We never shy away from sticking up for God and his truth of his laws and the morality that comes with it. And in today's day and age, just being moral and pleasing to God is pretty much like an outcast. A lot of people will dislike you for it, but
Right.
we both try to, at least I felt, we try to keep each other up when those situations come, and they're not easy. When you have to make a tough decision, or you have to tell somebody, hey, that's enough, or hey, that's wrong. So God is truly the head of this marriage, and then, eternally, and he's entrusted, as we're taught in marriage counseling, the husband to lead. The husband is the head of the marriage and the wife is the heart. So that's the mindset we're going to try to live out. So
Mhm.
I don't know if I can add anything to that.
Well, you both.
So.
So I mean, I think that's also something that a lot of people. I mean, if I was somebody who was against getting married early, and I was to say to both of you, well, you both are so young, you haven't really had an opportunity to be in the world, go through certain circumstances and scenarios, with maybe being on your own, having a job, having your own place, having just issues in general come up with life. I mean, how would you say, what would be your response to somebody that says that's why you shouldn't get married? You need, regardless of if you find the right person, you need to be able to, be on your own and just go through things yourself before you go through things with somebody.
I have
I
an
love this
answer,
question.
but do you want to go, Lizzy?
I do, if you
No,
don't
go
mind.
for
I know
it.
you're
No.
supposed to lead, but
No, go for it.
I would say all the reasons that they would get, or that your hypothetical person you just said, is exactly why you should want to get married young. So you don't have to do those things alone and be so established. Because if you're established and you already have a house and you already have all your credit cards that you want, you already have your investments, it's really hard to merge all of that and your own life with somebody else. Even now we're struggling to figure out, okay, how often do we see this family or these friends? But we have to figure that out together. Whereas
Right.
if we waited 10 years to get married, we would be two totally different people who wouldn't be able to merge their lives.
Right.
David, what did you want to say?
To somebody like that, I think there is, obviously we live in a culture about me, what's best for me, what's best for my success, my career, my stuff, and stuff like that. And if this person who would ask this to me, my first response would be, I hear your question, but I want to clarify one thing. Do you believe in God? And if they answer no, I'd say, well, then it doesn't really matter to you because right now you still believe you're doing everything by yourself. Because even if I'm living as a single man, I'm still relying on God's grace. I'm still asking for his forgiveness. I'm still going through things with God and the Blessed Virgin, trying to live to glorify them. So now all I'm doing is I'm adding an earthly companion who gives their self all, to me, and I return the favor so we can grow together in grace. So it's like why are you waiting if it's meant for you? See what I'm saying? Like there's nothing
Right.
bad from it. If you take the mindset that you're not living by yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not accomplishing all this stuff by yourself. That's why I asked, do you believe in God? Because if you believe in
Right.
God, then you know that there's some higher power controlling all of this. We just can't perceive it.
Right. I think just in general, a lot of people, because of how the world is and how they've twisted certain things about relationships into, uh, an evil spin on it. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about just marriage in general, because again, the world now thinks that dating is not enough to get to know somebody, because now you have to live with them for so long, and then even until that point, that's why you have so many people that are they, they live together for 5 years and then they get married, and it's like, well, what's the point of getting married at this point? What haven't you figured out in the 5 years that you needed to find out, that you weren't going to find out until you live with them for that long? So
or they live together for 5 years and break up. It's like, well, that's awkward.
right. And I mean, when you talk about like a situation like this, or a topic like this about getting married young, I think it needs to be talked about more. And that's the main reason why I wanted to do this episode, is because more people need to understand that it's not for everybody. Obviously, there's 3 vocations in life. And even if the married life is your vocation, that doesn't mean you're supposed to get married at the exact time as everybody else. You two were a specific circumstance, and it just happened for you, but you identified that is the path you're supposed to go down. You didn't say, either one of you didn't say, well, I met David or I met Lizzy and I know that they're a great person. There's somebody that I want to date, but I just want to be on my own, and I'll get back with them in 5 years if they're still around. I mean, you and it's a credit to Lizzy, because she was straight up with David and said, listen, this is what I want. So are you going to do it or not? Are you going to ask me or not? And that's fine, because she knew what she wanted, and that's exactly the path she wanted. She didn't want to wait. And the uncomfortable topics come when you start talking about marriage, because it's just become this thing where you have to be a certain level of maturity, which you do, but that in the world's eyes comes with money, car, houses, material things, and just being a certain age. There's a lot of, you two are generally more mature than a lot of the 30-year-olds now that have been dating, quote, the same person for 10 years and haven't decided if they're supposed to be married yet. And that's what it comes down to, is that's why it's so important, and why God and religion and Catholicism is so paramount in a relationship, is because once you figure out, like you two did, that that's who you want to be with, God is sending you that person for a specific reason. So why put it off any longer than it has to be? That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly as far as I'm concerned. There's not much more that I can really think of. One thing I will say is it's not easy, because of our culture and our society. Like when everyone found out I was engaged, they're like, "Are you serious? Like, do you even know what you're
Yeah,
doing?"
right.
And
I was the one in school. It was the nightmare.
yeah, like yeah, that's
That's true. I didn't
that's
think
a
about
very
that.
good point. Like I
Yeah.
told my boss I got engaged, and they all just gave me a round of applause in our weekly meetings. So but still, I had friends like, "That's pretty young. Like, why are you rushing?" I'm like, "I'm not rushing.
Right.
She's the
Well,
one."
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
And if she is, you don't want to wait. I mean, and this is
yeah,
from,
that's my
I
thought.
mean, and I want to know what Lizzy thinks, because from a guy's perspective, if we find somebody that we know is the person we want to be with forever, it there's nothing on earth that's going to deter us from getting to that point. I mean, it's like that's what's going to happen. Now, from a woman's perspective, and being more cultured and how society is now, women are the housewife, the mother is so frowned upon that women are, you don't need a man. You can do what you want and be on your own and go for a career and go to school and do all this stuff and live a little until you get married. I mean, what's it like from a female perspective regarding you found somebody and you have that choice of, do I go for it or do I follow what the world says? And I'm sure it has a lot to do with your family and, them raising you.
That's a loaded question. First, I have a bit of a story. I went to public school my whole life, and in middle school, there was this one substitute teacher, a very sassy old woman. And at the end of every class where she was substitute teaching, she'd talk specifically to the girls and give some sort of emotional, empowering speech about how you can't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. You don't need no man.
Right.
It was very silly. And even then, me and my friends, we laughed about it because it just seemed so outrageous. We knew we could do what we wanted. We're blessed to live in a time where I could have decided to become a rocket scientist if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I wanted to do. I'd say society, at least so far, hasn't looked down on me for getting married young. People have generally really kept their questions and comments to themselves.
Uh-huh.
So that's been a blessing. Do you have a more specific question?
No. And that's good. And I think the one thing about David is, I know that David, and I say this facetiously, but he did not stop talking. Every time we talked to him, Lizzy this, Lizzy that, Lizzy this. But that's why he got married, is because he knew that, that's the path he wanted to go to. And so now the last question I want to ask is, what's one thing you didn't know about marriage that you wish you would have known before you got married? And what's the best thing, being so young, that happens when you're married, like you both are?
Do you want to go first, Lizzy?
I can answer the best part. I don't know what I'd answer for the other part yet. So.
All right. Well, I think I have an answer to both, and I won't ramble.
Go ahead.
So the first one, Jake, if I'm not mistaken, was, what is one thing that I wish I knew about marriage before heading in? I think it would be the balancing act that is scheduling, because I like my time where I can slow down and relax. And when you're married and you have to split your time between two families, especially before you have kids, you're expected to be in anything and everything because you're the married couple.
Right.
I think that's the one thing I wish I would have planned for better. And then the best part is just living together. At least that's for me. Living together, building a foundation, talking about finances, talking about what we want to do, where we want to be, what our goals are. Now they're with the person that you pledged before God on his altar to do everything with until the end, until death do you part. So I just think there's a beautiful thing in that most people, it's missed in our culture. And it's sad that it's missed, because I think we'd be a better place with it. So go ahead, Lizzy.
All right. Well, I think you're right about scheduling, but I'd say something I wish I had realized before getting married. Now, don't get me wrong. I knew a wife is supposed to submit and follow. My church preached that growing up, even though I was not raised Catholic, because it's in the Bible. That's just what you're supposed to do. So I knew that. And I'd like to think I'm fairly good at it, but only in the small things. So I wish I would have had more self-knowledge to know I need to do the big things too, and not just get caught up in the small things and being good at that. So that's one way that I could have come into this marriage perhaps a little bit better. And as for the best part, I think it's kind of what David was hinting at. We have a whole future together. We get to make our plans, decide what we want to do, and I get to go to bed every night knowing David will be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's I guess what it's all about, and why you both every day can be so thankful that, God has allowed you both to meet each other soon, and made you both think the same way, that you didn't want to wait. Because what if you both would have said, let's date for 2 years no matter what, and you'd still be in that boat? So
That would be torture.
so I know that we're coming up on time. Lizzy, thanks for coming on. And I think that, like I said, this whole subject is so important, and more young people need to understand that they get so caught up in what the world tells them, and there's so many options, and they just need to do whatever God tells them to do. I was at both of your weddings, or both. Wait, I was at
Your wedding.
I was at the wedding, whatever that thing is, and David's best man, that guy, he is like, people need to know
His
more about
speech was
him.
pretty good.
For all those listening, Jake was my best man.
So I'll let David end it, because he does. I still don't understand that dissemination, Facebook,
Yeah.
Spotify thing. I
You
still have to write
don't.
it down.
The express written consent. Yeah, this
Yeah.
episode not be disseminated with our express written consent of DJ Media. Yeah. No. So thank you everybody for listening. This is you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube under the name DJ Media, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon and Google Podcasts. We are under just Accepting Reality. We're hoping to be more active on social media. I know I plan to use DJ Media to express some more of my written thoughts, because putting pen to paper is where I've always shined. And then we're going to start doing more shorter form segments. I know I've said it a couple times, but we've actually got them almost ready to go. So it'll be a lot easier for those who don't have the attention span, or just don't like 32-minute episodes of me rambling and getting hyperactive. So again, DJ Media on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Accepting Reality, the podcast, is available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Google. Any last words, Jake, Lizzy?
Thanks for having me.
All
Nope.
right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, and God bless.